Healing Minds and Souls, a faith-based community dedicated to bringing trauma-informed care to the North Nashville community and surrounding areas through education, resources, and building relationships to develop healthy and a holistic community. Pastor Ella Clay will be talking about how we can stop allowing fear to overtake us regardless of our past, present, or future. Come and learn how to recognize signs and symptoms of trauma as we understand the emotional, physical, social, and spiritual impact of traumas. We will unpack the meanings of vicarious traumas and how to avoid moral injury as we actively avoid re-traumatizing ourselves and others. Let's learn together how to navigate life challenges of grief, trauma, pain, and/or isolation, and discover our innate strengths of courage, kindness, trust, perseverance, and become better equipped to experience a newfound confidence by not letting circumstances define our current existence or future selves. Join our show today with Pastor Ella Clay. She serves as senior pastor of the historic First Community Church and executive director of Healing Minds and Souls, 1815 Knoll Street, Nashville, Tennessee, 37208.
Good morning. We welcome you to Healing Minds and Souls, a trauma-informed care community. We're excited about today, everything that God has for us, because great is God's mercies towards us. Each morning we wake up, new mercies we see, all that we have need of, God's hands have already provided. We thank God that God is a compassionate God. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back after we hear from our sponsors.
Are you tired of missing out on North Nashville's hidden gems? Our business library is your gateway to the city's best-kept secrets. Discover local hotspots, from mouth-watering restaurants to cozy hotels, and everything in between. But we don't stop there. Tune into our exclusive podcast for insider tips and book tickets effortlessly for top venues like the Grand Ole Opry, Tennessee Performing Arts Center, and the Municipal Auditorium. And sports fans? We've got you covered too. From the Titans to the Predators, you can purchase your tickets and secure your seats. From the North Nashville Library, don't let another exciting opportunity slip away. Click the link below to unlock the full potential of North Nashville living today. Wade's Lawn Service is your one-stop solution for all your outdoor needs. We offer comprehensive residential and commercial lawn care, expert landscaping and design, professional fertilization, and seasonal maintenance services. Our team of skilled professionals will transform your outdoor space into a stunning oasis, boosting your property's curb appeal and value.
Hello, my name is Deborah Wade, and this is my husband, Ira Wade, located at 1215 Louisville Highway in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. We've been in business now since...
I started in 98.
Don't let lawn care stress you out any longer. Visit www.wadeslawnservice.com or call us at 615-766-8347 today to experience the difference of a well-maintained, beautiful lawn without the hassle.
On this morning, we have Minister Yvonne Johnson. As a native Nashvilleian, her favorite scripture is Psalms 1:1-3. Yvonne obtained her Associate of Science degree of Health Administration at Nashville State Community College. She received a Bachelor of Science with a major in Health Information Technology from Trevecca University in Nashville and a Master of Divinity from Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. Yvonne is an author of The Whole Truth, A Talk with God. She has seen the righteous forsaken and God's seed begging bread. Yvonne is the founder of Single Moms Inspired for Life's Extremes Incorporated, SMILE, established in 2012, and has worked with the Crosspoint Dream Center to launch a single moms ministry. This nonprofit work was birthed out of experiencing life extremes while raising her 4 daughters, Kiana, Janice, Janae, and Kiara. Smile, as she has authored, Yvonne's afforded opportunities to coordinate and facilitate women's empowerment events, mental health forums, and women's Bible studies in the local churches. She is also the grandmother of Riley and William Jr. It is Yvonne's desire to be a vessel of God used to build self-esteem in women so that they believe that they are queens chosen by God. She has donated her time to various organizations and churches to support women in all stages of life. She has given back to her local community as well as adopting Black single-parent families and launching Invest in You, through which her organization provided in its first $500 college scholarships. God has allowed Yvonne to touch lives with preaching, prayer, monetary resources, mentoring women, and just a listening ear. She understands that God is the most important in her life, and she will go to great measures so that God will always get the glory out of whatever her hands touch. She also desires for us all to remember to smile because someone needs to see a smile. Welcome, Minister Yvonne Johnson. We are so glad to have you here on this morning with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll tell you what, you are a really amazing woman, fascinating, someone that I have admired from afar. We met through Facebook.
Yes.
And I enjoyed a lot of things that you have posted. And our minds oftentimes think alike, and I would comment, and you would comment on mine. So I believe that we've been brought together. It's amazing how God can use anything, even social media,
Oh, yes.
to do God's work and to bring individuals together.
Yes.
So again, we welcome you to Healing Minds and Souls on this morning.
Thank you.
So let's start off here. Let's talk about your life's journey and the impetus that brought you to where you are at this point in your life.
My driving force are my 4 daughters. 17, pregnant, in and out of the home, pretty much rebellious child growing up. But it was the day before my birthday that I started to have contractions, and I was in labor all day on my 18th birthday, and she came the day after. Watching her and understanding that I'm now a mother, already having the instincts, I coddled and cradled her for 2 weeks without anybody touching her. But then came along the twins. That was a conversation between my mom and I, with the help of her husband, and my godparents. They helped me navigate me along with 3 children. And my baby girl came, and that's when, life kind of hit a driving point. What are you going to do? You're 21, almost, on your way, 3 kids. Now you're 24, 4 children. What are we going to do as a family? So uprooted out of there, based on your living income, housing, moved to another one, but in a better environment. Didn't know where it was going to take me, but with all of that, if it wasn't for them, I can't tell you that I launched Single Moms Inspire for Life Extremes through my children. That's a different story, but they drove me to become a homeowner at 32 years old, $10.75 an hour, with the help of the president of of course, the associate's degree that I was attaining is in health administration and biology at the same time, because that's another conversation for another day. But with the help of the president of the company giving me different types of incentives on my paycheck, it afforded me to pay my mortgage, and it did a lot. And to put my daughter through school alone in 2010, it was a year after that, a couple of years after that, is when I decided, how do I take this energy that I have and give it to someone else? Driving to Memphis every other weekend. I drove to Memphis with $1,500. And of course, my income was over income at the time. We didn't get the full financial aid scholarship, and drove home with $50 in my pocket for 2 weeks, borrowing money from my mom to make it. And that kind of catapulted into, what do we do now? Your oldest one is gone to college. How do we live life as a new normal with a dog and 3 kids in the home? So and they have been my inspiration, my everything, all that I have needed and wanted that God has given me to be a mom to them. All the roads weren't easy, and we mess up, but we're here.
That is such a phenomenal story, how God can take wherever we are, and if we keep working towards what we feel that God is calling us to, even in the challenges, God has a way of bringing all things to pass. And so, oftentimes we think that we may have messed up, or we may have taken the wrong path, and perhaps we have, and perhaps we haven't. Perhaps it's just a journey in life. But I am just always in awe how God can take whatever we're going through, whatever the challenges may have been, and God always works them out for our good, and not only for our good, but for the good of many. And I know that your daughters are excellent. They have to be, because a good tree cannot bear bad fruit. And again, I commend you for your authenticity and for sharing with us. And I think about even younger women that may be listening, or that will tune in. How can you share with them that they can still continue to keep growing and keep thriving, and eventually everything will, I don't know if I say work itself out, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but what would you say to encourage the younger women, even older women?
To encourage another black single mom with multiple children, even with one, because it's hard. You need a village. Without a village, it's impossible to do the things that will help us thrive as parents, but in order for our children to model behind us to thrive. But you not only to have a village, but a village that is a praying village. Not so much as a Bible village, but a village that knows God, that understands that God is the ultimate to get us through those different directions. You need a financial planner, someone that you're close to. I remember being behind on my bills, and I had to call someone, an older woman. I've always grappled towards, like, how do I get to this point, but who do I grab onto while grappling with my own pride as a single mom? And we sat down, and I said, help me understand how to keep everything, at a zero balance. We sat down and we talked. I had to be transparent. And it was a black woman, of course. And she helped me strive forward, but it takes a village. We have to listen to those that are mindful of us, that are mindful of our children. I cannot tell you that God alone sends the people, but I cannot tell you that just prayer alone does the work. In my book, The Whole Truth, I talked about prayer and how prayer works, but without the work, the prayer can't work, because so often we're looking for the feather in the sky to fall out, or someone to knock on our door, when that can happen. But in order to get those things, the village is what works. Prayer works, and God will send, but we have to do the footwork. It wasn't easy. This role was that's why it's called Single Moms Inspired for Life Extremes. It was extremely hard because of the different things that transpired out of the nonprofit, of giving away my own resources, never granted money, not 501c3, although I have a control number with the state of Tennessee. Giving book scholarships came from my income while putting 3 children through a university. My cousin was murdered. I watched her mom grieve, and we found her. And through all of that is when I said I have to do something different for single moms who don't understand God, who may not have had an opportunity to have a relationship with God. How do we present ourselves as Christ presented himself, to the people? who are we if we can't present ourselves like Jesus did? You know, so often we want to come into a building and preach in the pulpit and do ministry on the surface, but there's trenches out there. Jesus went to the trenches, and I am a strong believer of the woman with the issue of blood. Although she touched him, he healed her first, rather than the elite. He decided to turn away from the elite to go to a woman who had been hurting for so long. And with that village, they presented that to me. You know, they didn't go run to the masses, although they were a part of it. And I have worked with people who worked with the masses and a lot of things in the community, and connected to a lot of people who would rather not deal with me. But with that, I just think about what Jesus did. So it puts God in the face of a black woman, because most of them are black women who helped me get to this point. But we have to listen. Single moms are prideful. We do it all by ourselves. If it wasn't for my village, I can't tell you where I would be.
Amazing. And like you said, a lot of times when we are going through our challenges and life experiences, there is a certain level of pride that puffs itself up, because it may be because we don't want people to think that we are failures. So you have to have this sense of, I'm going to do it by myself, regardless to what stats say, regardless to what my family has said, regardless to what my friends have said. I'm still going to do it. But to be able to humble ourselves and say, you know what, I can't do it alone. And we wasn't created to exist on an island, right? We were created to coexist. We need people to come alongside of us. One of the things, you said so much in that, but one of the things I really admire about you is how you have a command for the text, the biblical text. And that, but you don't see it how traditionally it has been taught, or what we have heard throughout all of our life. You take the text and you slice it and you flip it over and you deconstruct it and you build it up to make it make sense for what we're dealing with, our challenges in life. Your title of your book is The Whole Truth, A Talk with God. She has seen the righteous forsaken and God's seed begging bread. So all of our life, we've never seen the righteous forsaken or its seed begging bread. And we'll take that text, and I believe it's true, and we'll shout over it, and we will run, and we dance, and, you know, we celebrate the fact that of the promises of God. But could you share with us how you have looked at that passage and how that passage of Scripture has even played out in the lives of, you know, women and things that you have seen and experienced in life?
When I knew this question was coming, I sat and I pondered. And oftentimes with theology, you can't rip the Band-Aid off. Ripping off the Band-Aid can destroy a life because of the upbringing and the biblical history that a person has. And the cognitive dissonance that a person has when they're just so knee-deep into that thing, it can lead them to, you know, being atheist almost. However, do you remember Hagar?
Yes, I remember Hagar.
She left the first time, and she said, you know, she didn't know. So the angel came and said, I see you. So God seen her in the wilderness, single mom with a son, pregnant by force from Abram, who and the direction of Sarah.
That's right.
Just not to get into too much detail.
Pushed out of the house.
Yeah. I don't know how much I can or cannot say,
but whatever you
okay. So Hagar was raped by Abram in the direction of Sarah because she was her mistress. You know, we're looking at an enslaved little girl. She's a child.
And can you say that again? So, because anytime that you are forced to give your body to a person,
it's a violation.
You don't have any consent over it, right?
Right.
And so we preach that text. See, we won't have to bring you back because there's a totally different, they get so deep. We preach that text in a beautiful way, but the deep intricacies and the challenges and the pain that was in it, we often don't get to that, but go ahead.
I think we look at the blessing, not to segue away from what you asked me, but we look at the blessing of Isaac, and we forget about me, who was Ishmael, my mom, who had me, you know, not to go into too much detail with that, but coming from a family where I buried my father, but yet he didn't want any children, and he admitted that to me even in my 30s and my 40s. I didn't want any kids, illegitimate, but yet I still made sure you had a grade going away, a private one at that. So humanity means a lot to me. Nevertheless, Hagar, she went out into the wilderness the first time, and God saw her. She went back, but the second time, what was a drink of water and a piece of bread, and she was ready to just abandon her son in the desert. So she's one of God's righteous.
Yeah.
She was begging. What am I supposed to do? And then we think about the woman with the whole truth. She ran out of everything that she had. So how do we say that God's righteous was never forsaken or seen his seed begging for bread? Could it be patriarchy who allows his seed beg for bread?
Oh my God.
Could it be the misogynism that's within the church where we as single women are overlooked and God's seed is begging for bread? You don't know how long I begged for bread, even though I had a village, and pretty much wanted to show them that I did this. I'm 18 years in a home that I couldn't afford. And Lord knows if I move, I can't move back. You don't know the nights that I didn't ask because I was begging for bread, but yet my pride, of course, got in the way, but even with asking, there was no help. How do you ask a Magruder Center? How do you ask a MDHA when the resources are there, but there's nothing there to help me move forward? These resources, those grants are there, but there's nothing there to put you in a revolving door to move forward. Yeah. They want you to continue to ask. During COVID, just to share a little bit, my daughter, she got laid off, needed rent help, but there was nothing to ask on how to go forward. There was no job applications, no job offers, me getting a grant from someone. What do I do with this? Because I have to follow along with what you tell me to do with this. I have to give you the receipts of how you tell me to give these resources out. But yet there's a backing into this. You gave her a cup of water, a pitcher of water, or a thermos of water and a piece of bread. But yet you didn't tell her how to thrive. So what do we do with that? So yes, they are begging. I'm God's righteous, but yet I still had to beg for bread. You threw her out there in the middle of the desert. Hagar is one of my most favorite people in the Bible because she has been thrown away from, I've been in church since I was 5. And I've never heard anyone give her the justice that she was due. Even Ishmael was the blessing. Was he really? Was he really the blessing? Was Isaac really the blessing? How do you compare the two when they're seeds of the same man? I don't understand it. It behooves me how we portray we read these things, but we read them from more of a conservative, patriarchal lens rather than looking at the whole person. If we believe in humanity, if we love humanity, why can't we just uplift Ishmael and uplift Hagar? Because God did put a blessing on him. He just, he was out there in the wilderness. How else do you expect him to thrive? They threw him, she left. You threw her out the second time.
That is a pretty powerful text, and thank you so much for even giving us a different perspective on the text. I think about when she was out there, so the righteous sometimes do beg for bread, right? And the text, it goes on to say, but God saw her, God sees her, El Roi, the God that sees me. And it's something powerful that happens. That no matter what situation or challenge we're in, God still sees us. God still comes alongside of us. But it's going through, getting to that promise is oftentimes, again, Ishmael eventually. I believe the promised child as well, right?
Oh, yes.
Like you said, the same,
came
from the same seed, so obviously. So there's no, how we say, Isaac was the promised child, right? But Ishmael, but again, if it came from the same seed,
it's the
same tree, the same fruit, the same blessing. We oftentimes see people like that, even in life. We try to put people in certain categories because their lives experience may be different. They may have been birthed a certain way. But again, we're all the righteousness of God. So thank you for that. That's so deep. Let's talk about, you have an organization, Smiles, that single moms inspired for life's extremes. And life, even with this text, right? With Hagar, that was a life extreme. That was a really challenging situation. Tell us about that, and tell us about some of the traumatic experiences, if you feel led to, that, again, mothers have to go through in order to oftentimes do the best that they can for their children, and how you're able to come alongside of mothers and encourage them and just be there with them. And it's something amazing that happens even in our struggles. Sometimes we think our struggles and our challenges are just for us, but it's not. Again, even the hurt, the pain, the challenges that you went through, God has allowed you to turn those things around, and now you're able to reach out and help other women, which is so powerful. Not staying in your pain, because, you know, it would probably could sometimes been easier just to sit there and waddle. You said something about organizations, how they may have resources, but it's more of a revolving door. So even in Smiles, is it that you are looking for other ways to help women other than just hand them resources? Because resources is just one part.
Okay, yes.
But it's about coming alongside of them in their everyday life. So could you share about that?
With those, well, with Smile, it originated, of course, I said originally, I don't know how to frame it, but my cousin's daughter was murdered. Sitting at my desk at work, I text my spiritual mom, First Lady Joy Settles, and then my other friend, LaWanda Madison. And I said, y'all, I want to write. You know, I don't know what to write, but I want to write. I want to put something together. So we all three came up with the acronym SMILE, and then we kind of worked through, you know, what have you been through? And it was more so of a group text message. And it started as this small little website. You couldn't read it. And, of course, the church that I had attended at the time, one of the seniors came to me and they said, I'm reading your website, but I can't read the font. So I'm learning and learning and learning. But as it grew, I went through some life unexpectancies in the church, and I thought about, at that moment, how do I grow this outside of the building? Because at first, you know, it was more inside the building through women's conferences, talking to other women. Of course, Crosspoint Church, who was once here in Nashville, 10,000 plus members. I sat down with them as a team to put together their single moms through Mending Hearts would come down, and we would minister to them on Sundays, every Sunday. So I thought about, how can I bring this outside of a building? How do we orchestrate something that doesn't look traditional? And one year, God blessed me, not to say how it was a blessing, but I don't even know how I got it, but I took my resources and I told my kids, I said, y'all, I want to adopt a single parent family. And she said, how are you going to do that? This is the oldest one. She's more like me. I said, well, Kiara, I just want to give her something. You're going to give somebody something, they're not doing anything. This is how, you know, your children are watching you give away money out of the house. So I put an application out there, and one mom reached out. She said, this is unbelievable. I said, no, it's not unbelievable. She said, I've never, ever had anybody, because I asked a couple of friends, do you have anybody that's a single parent, one or more children, that I could bless for Christmas? That's how it started. So my daughter was in school in Memphis, and that year I said, okay, Kiara, she lives in Memphis. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm like, Kiara, can you help me? So I bought the gifts, and my daughter drove them back to school before Christmas, and of course she drove back for Christmas. Dropped it off, and that first mom and I became relational. And we talked because I didn't know her. I just knew her through a friend that knew her, that offered, you know, because it was a 25-word essay. You know, the less 25 words or less to tell me how you feel about raising your children. And if you can come up with less words, that lets me know that the authenticity is there. The more words you use, the less you're pretty much not authentic if you use too many words, in my opinion.
Because you're embellishing and
pretty much, yeah. Because if I say God knows, that's pretty much like, you know, if I say what's done is understood, just watch my feet and I'll walk. So I'm a woman of little words, unless we're sitting right here. So anyway, we became in a relationship, and then I launched my first Single Moms Inspired for Life Extremes and adopted a second family. So what I did is, she didn't know what I was doing. I invited her to the event, and I blessed her child with school supplies. And that year I did Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then I think I did a Mother's Day gift to the mom. And it just grew from there. So then life happened, and my daughter said, can we put a pause? And I said, so you're the advisor, tell me what we're pausing on. She said, Mama, I can't see growth. I said, what do you mean? The kids are growing. She said, yes, but we need to have them in the community. So she's more traditionalist too, but I'm like, okay, we'll put a pause on. I said, so can we do something else? Of course, I'm still wanting to give. I said, can we give money for a book? And I'm laughing because I watched her face. She said, well, how much how much is this check are you trying to write? And I'm like, Kiara, come on, give me a break. So we gave our first book scholarship, but it has to be a first generation college student, meaning the parent could have never attended college, that experience that the child can have in anything. So we put the money on his books. He went to Hampton University, straight A student.
Wow.
No, mom's not into the church. How do you reach people outside the church? So that's how it grew. And then I ended up with my little Riley. So I kind of sat down with the advisement of a therapist, my mentor, Martha, my mom. Let's take a break. Let's just take a small break. And I had to disconnect from the community, disconnect from the church, because Riley has autism, level 3, meaning that she's totally nonverbal. She's semi-verbal now, a lot of behavior. So that took some working with. How do you walk away with something that you love to do? So in the event, my therapist explained to me, let's start on one project at a time. And that's how the book came to play. So I, for 2 years, worked on this. Now, it's a lot of things that I wished I could have done different now that the book is printed. But either way, I worked on it wholeheartedly, paid someone to help me get it out there because I have no idea what to do with it. But here we are.
Can we lift the book up, show
Oh,
the
yes.
book to the audience? It's beautiful.
The Whole Truth, A Talk with God. And what I love about it is because there is a God, but I grapple with a lot, Pastor Clay, that we're still out here begging, and the seeds are not getting what they need, especially in the Nashville community. Not to go too far into this, but what is 37208 doing for Black single moms? I live on a street where there's tall homes that are $714,000 now, whereas the property 20 years ago was worth maybe $15,000. How can we build affordable housing for them? We're still begging in the city of Nashville, although we're still a Democratic state, and I'm not trying to go down that loophole, but one day I may be the councilwoman.
Amen.
But how do we help those that can't help themselves? How do we help them thrive? How do we build affordable housing and yet still walk alongside a single mom with children like me who moved on this street when the crime was just enormous? It was an astronomical number, but yet God kept us safe. I was broke and I was hungry. I was trying, but yet now you can't even move in your own community where your grandparents was raised, where your mom was raised, where your cousins, where y'all played on the street, How do we change the trajectory of our own community? How do you work through your own community? How do you see Black single moms thriving? Whereas the statistics are very high for us with being poor in Nashville and in my zip code, living across the street from an inner city school, but yet I can't find a decent elementary school, and I have to drive 20 minutes outside of my zip code in order for her to get a decent education. How do we change that? And I know this is changing the direction of the questions, but that's where my heart is now. If I come back outside, how am I an impact to a Black woman to help her to become a landowner? Because that's where the wealth is. In order to give something back to her family, be it 1075, unemployment hasn't been raised in how many years? It's still $7.25. $15 an hour is still not enough. And that passion has driven me. Now that I'm, half a century old, there's a different perspective. There's a different perception. There's a different drive. It's not just adopting a family anymore. It's more so talking to council, talking to Congress. What do we do to change the direction of affordable housing, decent jobs? I have, me 12 years in a job and I'm finally at leadership. How do we change that? I don't know. I have no clue, and I'm still trying to grab for the answers, but without people to talk to about it, like you having me sit here. No one will hear it. I can post all day on Facebook, but yet the opportunity to at least get it out there. You know, how do we change 37208? Not to move backwards, but to move forward, but have a thriving community that's diverse
Absolutely.
and not one-sided. Because not everybody makes six figures.
That's right.
And we're not making six figures. No, by far.
I think, you raised so many good questions, inquiries, and I'm excited that you likely do have a call on your life to run for council, person, senator, mayor, governor, because of the burden that God is placing upon your heart. Again, you talk about the 37208. I think all of it, what you're saying, is really relative, but we have to change the policies, right? We have to change the policies. We have to have people that will continue to speak out, to not be afraid to come against the so-called powers, to speak power, speak truth to power. And so individuals such as yourself, as you continue to raise your voices and lift your voices, because you have lived some of these experiences that prevent a lot of individuals from prevailing, from succeeding. I think about, you said, what are we doing? What are we doing? There's work that's being done, but it's far, we still need so much more. I think about Alicia Haddock that was over the housing fund, whereas individuals were able to build new homes in this area, and we call them affordable. Nothing is really affordable, but still able to get people in homes. I think about organizations such as Healing Minds and Souls. One thing that we have to do is not have programs. Programs are important, but what are the long-term things that we're doing to come alongside of people? Because again, as Healing Minds and Souls, we have a resource center. Individuals are able to come to shop for free. However, that's a tangible and immediate resource, but even after we feed the people, after they go in the resource center and choose their food items, after they go in there and choose items for their children and items for themselves, there's still work to be done. And so again, one of the ways that we do that is through the educational classes, the year-long educational curriculum, where we are committed to come alongside of people. As you said, it takes a village. And so we have to create villages where they're healthy, they're holistic, and we're meeting people exactly where they are. And let them to know that if they choose to come out of the situations and the circumstances and you had to have a made-up mind. You had to be willing. You had to fight. Some of us, we said, I've had to fight all my life. We have to have that God spirit on the inside of us to continue to kick the doors open, kick ourselves out of the boxes the society attempts to put ourselves in. And I tell you, you have done it in such a beautiful way. Again, not only for yourself, but for the sake of your children, for the sake of other generations to come, the sake that other women can say that, you know what, I'm in a hard situation now, but now I can look at Minister Yvonne. And if she was able to do it, I can do it too. So we certainly commend you for your work. Again, you're a visionary, right? You're a visionary, and you see life totally different. And one thing about our experiences, although they can be hard, they can be challenging. And sometimes, as I say, that we feel like we have been gut punched or the breath has been knocked out of our bodies, and just experience a lot of trauma of life experiences. But even in that, knowing that all of that, the hardship, the pain, it has a way of birthing something beautiful, which is almost an oxymoron, right?
It does, with a therapist.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
There's no way that I could have gotten here without a mental health doctor. Life is hard.
Yeah.
You can have a village, and good mental health therapy is not accessible to everybody.
And what's the difference between good and just going through someone that
Centerstone,
Uh-huh.
Centerstone, mental health co-op, we disperse meds, yet we are not listening to the pains of people. Psychiatrists they're centered around to write the prescription, but not so much as sit and listen to the story. Whereas a therapist, a counselor, certified of course, they can do the psychotherapy. Now psychotherapy is hard. Not everybody has the mental strength.
And so let's talk about, explain these terms and use psychotherapy.
Psychotherapy is where you sit down and you talk through the hardest trauma you've ever dealt with. You relive the pain. I was told that because I was thrown in the water like Moses at birth, I've navigated, so 6 years ago I would have been in my mid-40s, close to 50. I've navigated life without therapy, more so. I was okay to go through it because there's a measure of survey that the therapist takes you through. So with that, it comes with crying, it comes with punching, it comes with sleeping in the dark after therapy. But psychotherapy deals with the things that you don't want to talk about. It's at the core because your behavior, the way you react and respond to things is what you've dealt with. The way you project is the things that you've dealt with. So psychotherapy for 3.5 years gut punched me to a point where I had to pull up all of that I had been through as a kid up until now, even currently with the things that are going on in my family. Somatic is now dealing with emotions. There's a book called The Body Holds.
Keep Score.
Keep Score, okay. Yeah, I read so many books, I forget the titles of half of them. But the body keeps score, and we wonder why we have high blood pressure, why we overeat, why our joints hurt, why we can't think, why it's hard to take in someone else's story, why we don't check in on us first. So now there's more so of this meditation piece, understanding, and she's very biblical, a little conservative, but I work through that. Biblical, are we picking up our Bible to find hope in the Word, when we don't have anybody else with us? Do we have a village of people that can keep us inspired? And how are we presenting ourselves to ourselves every day? Are we giving ourselves self-talks? Are we... one therapist, because it's been two, but the first one, she said, write down on a piece of paper and have it in front of you when you look at, when you wake up. I choose vulnerability or violence. Some mornings I choose violence, meaning I want to fight the powers that be in a more intellectual, emotional, intellect way. Or be vulnerable, who do I call when I need someone the most? Who can I show up to be there and present for me? So with those two types, the good therapies care about your well-being. You can text them. You can call them in the middle of the night. You can do well checks without having to pay a copay. Those are good therapists. I can't say bad. Can I say bad therapists? Well, not so good therapists, just write me the prescription and I'm good and I'll be numbed. But that's, that's something that I grapple with too because, if you're giving me the meds, why can't you sit and talk to me? But that's a different pay scale. So, yes, but I wish that affordable health care allowed people to have good therapists because not all the time do good therapists take Medicaid. Medicare, TennCare. There's a threshold to that, how many times you can go see them. I had a friend who was seeing my therapist, the first one, and she only could see her 5 times in a year. So even employers don't allow you to show up, and then you have to pay the straight fee. So that was a conversation that I had to deal with. I'm like, how do you give somebody something back and you're not certified? So I listen, and I try to give them different ways and guiding them, but I refer them out. I don't know how to do the deeper digging. I don't want to because I'm not there in their presence. I can't pull you out of that mental state that drives you down there. Only a therapist can do that, but without a doctor, a mental health doctor, there's no way I could have gotten this far. There's no way.
I think it's important, oftentimes in church, and I don't know, I think we're getting better. I desire for us to get better, that we want to lean heavily over the spirituality, and I certainly believe we need to, but also we are spirit, body, and soul, and I'm speaking of soul as it relates to your emotions and your will. And so you can shout over something and you can speak over tongues over something, and you can jump and dance. But if you're not dealing with those emotional things, you're still going to be right back at the same place. So we have to deal with ourselves in a holistic manner. Recently, I've started going to a therapist. It's one of the most wonderful things that I have ever done in my life. And particularly when you're doing this type of work, because you want to do it in a good way. You want to do it in a healthy way. You don't want to do it where you're bleeding on people. And so when you're not able to deal with your own challenges, to deal with things that just come up, you talked about how hypertension, diabetes, your aches and pains in your bodies, again, your body keeps score with the pain, sometimes things that we have even forgotten that have happened in our lives. So for us to do this work and do it well, like you said, mental health care, behavioral health care is so vitally important. I am convinced that the world would be a better place. We would exist better if we really focus on behavioral and mental health care. And one thing I think about when I think about health care, seemingly we split it, like there's physical health care. When someone says that they've had a heart attack or when they have had a stroke, the physical things, it's looked at differently versus when someone says that I am stressed, I can feel this trauma, it's coming up. We have a tendency to split that, where I think that we should look at healthcare as a more holistic approach and giving people encouragement when they reach out.
There's a stigma in the Black community.
Yes.
And they call this, the word is called crazy or insane.
Yes.
But as I've done my research and still digging deeper, before, I think it was the 1900s, they were locked up in chains, our race. In the white coats, they would pull them out the house, sedate them in the mental health clinics. So that's what our community is struggling with. That they envision what happened then, and not understanding that it's not that way anymore. We're not dragged out the home or tied down with a straitjacket like the movies show us, but it was done that way for real. Not sure what book I read, but that's how it used to be. So it just kind of bled over into the generations to come. And Big Mama would say, "Oh, I'm just gonna go in here and cook," but that was her way of dealing with whatever happened. Or Big Mama can't sit down when her mom died. Big Mama can't sit down. Mama just died. Mama, sit down. But she's still moving and moving, and she's up at the crack of dawn because she's wanting to forget what happened. And so much so we push it back subconsciously, and then you're triggered. So are you able to handle those triggers with people who don't look like you? Because things have happened to you in the past. Are you able to show up in order to manage your job? You can't just lash out on your coworkers or, why are your friends walking away from you? There were times I was doing that, and I'm like, what's going on? And that's when I realized something's got to give. I got to deal with this because I'm raising grandchildren. There's no way I can raise my grandchildren like I did my kids because the times have changed. And luckily, I was blessed with a beautiful autistic grandbaby, and I have grave patience. My patience is so thick. It takes a lot for me to, sometimes I just be like, okay, and I'm like, where did that come from? But that goes with therapy. Therapy undoes what's tangled in your brain. It kind of straightens out those gray lines in your brain, those synapses that come together. And when you're triggered, you're able to pause and wait. So it's more like a fire drill. Or in a fire, you stop, drop, and roll. That's what response should be. Stop, drop, think, and roll. You react to it or respond to it. But yes, but unfortunately, Miss Ella, Pastor Clay, mental health therapy ain't free. And we can talk about it all day long, and we can talk about the holistic way to do things, but we're dealing with mental illness that has to be medicated. And my dad, and I want to share that, my dad struggled with a mental illness after coming out of the war. He went to Fisk on full scholarship, traveled the world, went into the Marines when he was 27 after my great-great-grandmother passed away. Came back, you know, he lived on the street most of his life after he came back in his 30s, and he died at 73. Mental health, you know, but he didn't want to deal with it. You know, there was things that I wish that he could have done while living, and I chased him down, you know, trying to get him together. Homeless, you know, he sold papers right here on West End a lot. I would go visit, like, hey, what you doing outside? But with that, we gotta want the help. That's the same with high blood pressure and heart problems, you know. We want to eat the food. I'll just pop the pill, everything. I was in getting my IT degree at Trevecca, and the nurse came in to tell us about ICD-9 and ICD-10 changing over, and how it's going to be hard to get access to these resources depending on how you got this blood pressure issue. So most times she said, we want the pill rather than go walking. So what we'll do is we'll limit the meds if you don't show that you're trying to do better with your body. Because with every medication, there's another symptom that's gonna come. So most often we wanna push it back. We don't wanna deal with it. We just wanna just go and go and go. We become overworked, hypervigilant in every situation, not think about what's going on. We just want to forget. We want to forget. So, and even if it was free, and this is what Dr. Simmons asked me, she said, if health care was free, mental health care was free, do you think that they would really go see a mental health? And it's the back of the mind stigma that we have, you know. You're crazy because you see a therapist. But to say this, it has done wonders for me. No meds, no nothing. We talk like you and I now in an open room, and it's just it feels like a cleansing that you have that runs through your soul, because I was a work to deal with. I had godparents and a mama who had to raise me from birth. I had two mamas growing up, but that's another book. It's called In the Beginning.
Oh, wow.
Yes, to talk about my upbringing. But yes, therapy is something, most black kids are born into a traumatic experience. 95% of our black children are not born with a silver spoon for one, and they're born in an environment that is living off of tradition that should have just been washed down the river. And they grow up, and then we wonder why the numbers are so high of murder and crime and being pregnant at a young age, or just out here wilding out.
Again, the traumatic experiences, even the generational patterns oftentimes that we see. We have a lot of work to do. But I am encouraged that we are going to do it. When I see individuals such as yourself, and how God has a way of bringing everything full circle.
Wow.
I certainly believe that nothing is too hard for God. Sometimes it's hard for us, and when it gets hard for us, thank God for the village, the two mothers that you said that you had, organizations that are able to come alongside of you, and then getting to the point where we feel that we need to do better for ourselves. So thank you again. This has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you
so
for having me.
Full and so productive. What would be your final words to our audience on today?
My favorite scripture, Psalms 1 and 3,
Yeah.
1 through 3. Walk into the counsel of righteousness. I'm not quoting it correctly. I don't know it verbatim. Not a Bible thumper. But when we bear that fruit, you know, go towards that water with that tree and watch it grow. But you gotta have a village. But you can't walk with the wicked.
Be like a tree that's planted by the rivers of water.
Yeah, I don't quote scripture.
Yeah, that's
Dr.
okay.
Mann.
And whatsoever you do, you will bear good fruit
Yes.
in its due season.
But it's a village.
It's a village
In
that
that water,
helps.
there's no way. In
Yes.
order to break down the text a little bit more, because I don't quote scripture, but in those streams of water, there are different people that you're gonna meet, and you have to walk. You have to walk in the counsel of the ungodly.
Yeah, don't walk in the counsel of the ungodly.
Yeah, don't walk in the counsel of the ungodly. It's coming, but yes,
That's
I'm
good.
reading 1 Kings right now.
That-
The
that's
theodicy of God has got me. I'm sorry, y'all.
What did you say? The what?
Theodicy of
I
God,
preached about that on Sunday.
because God is not always good.
I preached about that on Sunday.
wow.
It's amazing. Thank you again for the confirmation, because I was saying, it's interesting. Again, there's so much biblical text to read and to take in and to exegete homiletics and to come to understand and even make it applicable for today's society. But I talked about that Sunday, a theodicy, why does good and evil persist, and why is the world full of it if we say that God is a good God, and I believe that God is. But the things that we have to continue to grapple with, healthcare, right? Getting people able to have access. They really needs access. And then you said something too. We get ready to go back into another podcast.
I know.
But you said something, and I don't want to, we're closing, but I thought about when you said that your father, very intelligent man,
Oh, yes.
went away to service and came back a different person. And so you said how sometimes people don't want mental health care. Well, how can you trust the country when you have gone away one way
That's
and
it.
they bring you back another way? So we're going to conclude this show on
because
today.
this is a conversation
Yeah.
that we got to finish off camera.
We have to
Yes,
finish,
yes.
and maybe back on camera
Oh,
again
that's-
as well. Back
okay,
on camera
okay.
again.
I'll come back.
Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you. Stay encouraged, stay uplifted, stay empowered, and know that God is for you. And because God is, no matter what your situation, your circumstances, God is more than the world against you. God bless you. See you next week.